Greetings, historians. Welcome to Lore of the Dragon, and to perhaps a new series if this actually does okay. This will be more my opinions on stuff and answering some questions that you might have. Now, this will be from the perspective of the guy that's actually making the videos, not the character that I put on whenever I make a lore video. So this is actually going to be unscripted and just sort of my thoughts and me kind of just talking. I thought it would fit if I just sort of say what I would say normally and say it really without a script. I'm going to try to keep it organized though. I do have a couple bullet points I want to go through, so at least I'll have some organization here. So, the questions of today, what are they? Well, the first one is my opinion on a new Spyro game. And this is a pretty big question. I actually have this subdivided into a few questions, which is whether or not I think it'll be continuing from Reignited or I think it'll be a reboot. When do I think it will be coming? What I want, what I think is likely, stuff like that. The second one is something that a lot of people might be interested in, which is, do I think The Legend of Spyro will get a remaster? And I'll add on to that, a remake. Now, I'm just going to jump into it. So, do I think that a Spyro 4 will be coming? Yes, however, I can't confirm that. I don't have any sources to say that there will be. I'm honestly just having a fool's hope that it will come out at this point. Now, do I think that it would continue off of Reignited or be a reboot? Honestly, going off of Crash 4 and assuming that's the standard for these new Crash and Spyro games, it wouldn't exactly be a reboot because it takes place after the third installation of the original series. But at the same time, in lore, it's technically a new timeline, so it gets really strange and has all this multiversal stuff going on with it. It's kind of weird. So on that question, I'm just going to leave it as we probably will get a sort of reboot / follow-up to Spyro 3. So I don't really think it'll be a remake or remaster of Enter the Dragonfly, although some aspects of that game could be brought into the new Spyro 4. Now, when do I think it will be coming? Well, personally, I'm a subscriber to the idea of the next Year of the Dragon, which will be 2024, but honestly, I don't know. Also, for those who don't know, here, whenever I mention the Year of the Dragon, I'm not actually talking about the game, but rather the Chinese zodiac of which the name Year of the Dragon came from. Anyway, I have friends who theorize about when it's coming, and there are a couple theories that I do think are really cool, and perhaps it fits. And the main one that I typically hear is the idea of a Spyro game being announced or released on the Year of the Dragon, which I will say there's been some hints towards Spyro 4 over the years, and given what happened to Crash Bandicoot just recently, which I'll also note this year is Crash Bandicoot's 25th anniversary, I imagine that we'll at least see something in 2024, or rather, Spyro's 25th anniversary. Now, what do I want out of a new game? Well, obviously, judging by my channel, you probably see that I like lore. So, of course, in a new Spyro game, I would like a more in-depth story, lore, and so on. However, there are a couple things that I would like outside of that, which is the reintroduction of, let's say, an elemental wheel, and maybe not so much a level-up system like they had in, let's say, Skylanders or The Legend of Spyro, but perhaps something like finding something in the world that gives you a certain unique ability or move. And that's how you upgrade your element, so to speak. Also, having elements to solve puzzles would be really cool. And honestly, I would really like to see some crazy elements return, like Dragon Time. Because imagine the puzzles you could do with that. It'd be so cool. Now, I will say Crash 4 did have a time ability, which is the exact same thing as Dragon Time from The Legend of Spyro. So I imagine there would be some need to make it different. So it isn't just Spyro copying Crash. However, technically it's Crash copying Spyro. But I think that reintroducing it somehow would be cool. And for longtime viewers who know of this obsession, oh yeah, I would very much like Aether back in its full glory. And for characters, do I want any returning ones? I mean, obviously, those from the Reignited trilogy, like Hunter, perhaps. I'm not sure about some of the other characters. Maybe do something with Alora so she actually has a role in the story. Spyro 3. And perhaps, maybe, take some characters from, let's say, The Legend of Spyro or Skylanders, maybe, and make them work inside of the reignited universe or whatever universe they're trying to set up. Now, of course, everyone's going to mention Cinder. Do I want her in the next game? And it would be really cool if she was in it. However, I'm sort of worried for how they do it because I don't want it to be sort of a rehash of what was in The Legend of Spyro. I would like the character to be, I guess, just different so that when they are reintroduced, it's something unique that we haven't ever really seen before. And perhaps it would be cool if they went with the idea of the whole anti-Spyro thing they did with A New Beginning. However, something like a scavenger would also be pretty cool. Someone who's more grounded in reality, which might contrast with the rest of what we know about Spyro's world. That might be cool, because it gives the impression that there's more going on in the world of Spyro than what we see. It's not all happy and go lucky like with what Spyro might see. But perhaps after what was seen in Year of the Dragon, which was literally kidnapping, perhaps that is continued further and there are darker aspects of the world revealed, and that is through Cinder. Now, what I think would be really cool is the Chronicler and Ignitus, and perhaps there could be some tie into the multiverse somewhere, acknowledging that it exists in a very minuscule way. Not in a way that affects the main story, but at least saying, okay, it does exist. However, it's so far out of the reach of the story, it doesn't really affect Spyro. As for what I think is likely, only some of what I actually want. I honestly think that most of the story will revolve around the multiverse, and the reason why is because with Crash and Spyro, it seems like that's becoming a major topic within the narrative. Now, how much involvement that has in the story, I don't know. Maybe it's the entire premise. Maybe it's a side thing. Either way, I would expect to see part of it there. As for characters, because I think this will be a follow-up to Spyro 3, I would imagine there would be some returning characters from Spyro 3. I imagine that a lot of the ideas that Spyro 3 had, like playing multiple characters in these different minigames, would return, and hopefully this time they're a bit toned down, because Spyro 3, at least to me, had a little bit too many. But again, that's just my opinion. Maybe they'll do something with multiple elements, however, they might just go with the whole element gate thing from the Reignited trilogy and the original games. I think gameplay-wise, with movement and abilities, I don't think they would change too much. I don't really think that they're going to add multiple breaths. And I think that without a power gate, Spyro would just have his abilities he gained from Spyro 3, and a few more that might be added in the new game. Now, do I think that the Legend of Spyro series will get a remaster or remake? No, not really. My main reason for that is I really don't think Activision is interested in making a Legend of Spyro game. I think that they're more focused on what they have coming up, what's new. This whole return to form for Spyro. Now, it does seem like they're interested in bringing back ideas from the Legend of Spyro, like Dark Aether. However, a remaster or remake overall, I'm not sure. Maybe at some point there's an HD remaster or some sort of backwards compatibility update for them on Xbox and PlayStation, but I'm not quite sure it would be anything beyond that. Now, with all of that being said about if I think that The Legend of Spyro will be remade or remastered, do I actually want one? Not really, because honestly, a Spyro 4 would do more for the series than just give us a new game. My problem with having a new Skylanders game or new Legend of Spyro game is very similar, and that's because it would essentially go back to splitting the community and really just delaying a new Spyro game from coming out, from getting a new adventure, perhaps getting new characters that will be fan favorites. It honestly, I believe, would diminish the possibility of Spyro going forward. And given the fact we've basically had nothing for 3 or 4 years, it's really not something I would look forward to have a new Legend of Spyro game if I had to realize that we wouldn't really be getting anything new. We'd just be getting something that's essentially a retelling of an adventure we've already been on. Now, later in the future, let's say 5-10 years from now, I would be more open to the idea, because at least then Spyro would be a bit more established. You would have new games, and then you could start to branch out into remakes and remasters of older versions of the series, so that new games were coming out when the remasters were happening, something like that. But as of right now, or rather 2022, I would rather us not have a remake or remaster of The Legend of Spyro. And I will also say the same thing for Skylanders. Anyway, that's going to be it for me. Hopefully, this sort of answered some questions people have. Now, if you want to voice your opinion on the questions presented here, feel free to in the comment section below. But that'll be all from me. Thank you to everyone who has liked and commented to the channel over the years. And for those who are new and feel like staying around, feel free to subscribe. Also, a big thank you to Abyssal Blue and Lifegiver100 for the red gems, Jabby for the red and green gems, and Shaggy and Kiasu Shin for the blue gems over on Patreon. Again, thank you. Of course, it's not required, but you have my gratitude nonetheless. Anyway, I'll see you all in the next lore, speculation, or opinion video. Stay safe, historians.